Okay, we are live, or should be live, here on YouTube. Wonderful YouTube land. Look at me sounding old, even though I'm clearly not. Although, if you ask me for my favorite music, I might be an old person trapped in this body. That's beside the point, everybody. I'm meteorologist Nick Kelly. We are keeping an eye on a severe threat that is trying to really get going, especially for parts of southeastern Kansas and northeastern Oklahoma. We're going to start with a big overview here, then break things down to see where things stand right now and how the rest of the evening can unfold. But here's where we stand right now. Thankfully, we don't have any severe thunderstorm warnings or tornado warnings to contend with, but for much of southeast Kansas in the orange, that's a severe thunderstorm watch until we hit the midnight hour, heading into your early Sunday morning. And then just clipping our corner of northeast Oklahoma, Washington County, that's a tornado watch until midnight. But you can easily see where all the warnings have been so far. We have quite a bit of severe thunderstorm warnings just on the western sides of the KC metro, with storms around Leavenworth, Lawrence, and then trying to sneak back toward Emporia. And in the tornado watch, we actually have a couple of tornado warnings, potential tornadic supercells, really trying to hold together around Stillwater and even trying to come into parts of the Oklahoma City metro. So let's see how the radar is looking right now, and we'll just go on a tour to see how things are looking. You can see how, actually, let me go back over the past 4 hours here, because if you remember watching Doug the other night, we had a good band of showers and storms out in western and central parts of Kansas, and they pretty much died as they were working from west to east. But while the storms themselves collapsed, that actually left a surface boundary, or a little bit of area of lift. And that is why we earlier on had this thin little band of showers and thunderstorms pretty much starting between, let's say, Fort Scott and Chanute, between Pittsburgh and Independence, and then between Miami, and let's say between Bartlesville and Miami as well. And you can see it tried its best to hold on and try to overwork the atmosphere, but they quickly fell apart before it could finish working over Stockton Lake on the Missouri side. And you can see how it has not prevented any of these guys, these thunderstorms. If I can find my telestration tool, it has not prevented this cell from getting going in southern parts of Greenwood County, central parts of the county too. I'm watching another cell working over northern parts of Osage County in Oklahoma, but we also have other areas of storms that have been trying to develop. Again, right along the incoming cold front. Actually, I think it's starting to overtake the dry line now, but that is your cold front pretty much, really firing up those storms from Emporia all the way up to Leavenworth and almost as far north as St. Joseph. And let's take a look at these tornado warnings, or tornado warned storms, I should say, because I was a bit surprised when I was zooming out with the radar. We really saw things take off once you get closer to the Oklahoma City area. You could see many supercells trying to get their act together from the Oklahoma City metro down past Chickasha, Blanchard, over Anadarko, and then trying to continue down to almost Lawton. In fact, let's go a little closer look, a little more locales here. Apache and Elgin, right before the H.E. Bailey coming north out of Lawton turns more northeast. That'll take you up toward Elgin and eventually up the road to Chickasha. Which I'm surprised Chickasha hasn't been covered with any tornado warnings yet, or at the very least, if I look back on the radar, usually in any severe weather event that covers Oklahoma, it seems like Chickasha is always under some sort of warning. But that severe thunderstorm warning from the northern parts of Grady, and I want to say Caddo County too, that's just a severe storm. But if we want to look at the parameters of that severe storm, what is this guy doing here? Well, surprisingly, 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts and some quarter-size hail. Normally, like storms like that in that part of Oklahoma with a good severe setup, they'll be shooting us pretty high tops. But if we look at how things look from just Oklahoma City's perspective, the radar near Twin Lakes, that is not looking impressive at close to ground level. Let me see if I can get a composite look at things here. Yeah, you can see some elevated cores aloft above the surface, or above highlighted reflectivity values that would almost suggest some hail trying to come down. But this has been a very interesting cell here, especially when I try to show you the velocities coming out of Oklahoma City. As you can see, that rotation thankfully has weakened ever since it fired up around Tuttle, close to southern parts of Canadian County and northern parts of, I want to say Grady County or Caddo County as well. But you can see how back right before we hit the top of the 7 o'clock hour, that area of rotation between Minko and Tuttle, it was strong enough to prompt a tornado warning. But even though the mesocyclone in this was strong, we haven't really seen anything come together as we continue to pan along here. So if you want to argue, well, I almost want to see if there was any lingering areas of rotation, but looking at reflectivity and where we think any turning of the winds would be, it's not really showing up very well. But that hook, that part of the storm, is working in the northwestern sides of Moore and really beginning to work over South 89th Street, working in the southern parts of Oklahoma County. But the Weather Service is confident enough that it's worth watching, so they've extended that tornado warning for a good portion of Oklahoma County at the very least. Let's get the latest query on this and see what their thinking is. Oh boy, at the very least, the strong updraft with this storm is capable of producing some golf ball sized hail here as the storm continues to move east at 30 miles per hour. So if you know anybody out in southern parts of Oklahoma County, let's see, what are some good areas here? Definitely downtown Oklahoma City, Midwest City, Dale City, Choctaw, Harris, Spencer, Jones. I think this is going to be south and east of the village. In fact, it is south and east of the village, that polygon. But around Tinker Air Force Base, New Walla Forest Park, Lake Deluma, and even Smith Village, you can tell, get them a heads up, because if that storm tries to strengthen up a little more, tighten up its rotation closer to the surface, it could try to drop a tornado. But needless to say, if a tornado somehow doesn't materialize, I'm wondering what the hail sizes look like here. You can definitely see some of the hail sizes trying to perk up here. Let's see, if you want to take this product at face value here, what's the show quarter size hail at the tallest, but given how the reflectivity is showing a pretty good updraft going into this, I would not be surprised if that tries to produce some bigger size hail. The other tornado warning in any part of Oklahoma, in fact, I think across any other part of the country, is right around Stillwater. This warning continues for another 7 minutes, but I have not seen anything nasty coming out of this cell in terms of any confirmation. But like the storm in southern Oklahoma County, this one working across central Payne County, it is, if you're not getting a tornado out of that, the strong updraft with this could also produce some golf ball size hail. But the question that we have, not just with these cells, but these other cells that have been firing up around Eureka and trying to hold together in northern parts of Osage County in northeast Oklahoma, the sun's trying to peek out in some parts of southeast Kansas and northeast Oklahoma. The question is it enough to overcome still a fairly reasonable strength, if you will, a cap or layer of warm air aloft? That the sun is trying its best to weaken that a little bit. So you can see how as these storms continued along here, or as they developed and moved northeast, especially the cell that developed around Winfield and working across central parts of Greenwood County, you can see how through the loop there, it was trying its best to strengthen the bit or try to hold on to any sort of structure or strength. But we zoom in tighter to central parts of Greenwood County, it's not looking really impressive, at least at the lowest tilt from the radar, outside of, I want to say, what's the name of the airport in Wichita? I want to say it's the Dwight D. Eisenhower Airport. But if we take another look at this, we can take a vertical slice, to see how tall these storms are trying to get. In fact, let me tilt the camera down a little bit more just so we can get a good idea of exactly how tall, at least according to the radar from Wichita, is trying to peg these at. You can see, while none of the stronger returns are popping up over 20,000 feet, it is trying in a couple of spots to get over 30,000 feet, some of these higher cloud tops. So normally with storms that tall, if you will, they're not screaming severe weather, but as long as we have those warnings out of there, we are definitely keeping an eye on these, because if it's coming into an area where we could see a little bit of a weakness in the cap, They could try to grow a little taller, a little stronger, and that could try to not only produce a stronger storm with heavier rain, but it could try to produce some wind and hail along for the ride. Let's take another look, or at least a look around other parts of the area here. I want to see what this storm is doing. Well, you can hardly call it a storm at this point here, but let's just make sure that we're not seeing any lightning popping up. South of Granola, when the storm was crossing over Oklahoma 18, it sort of had at least a little bit of lightning to it, but you can see as it was trying to work into southern parts of Chautauqua County, around the town of Chautauqua, southeast of Cedarvale, south of Sedan, it's trying to hold on to some strong reflectivity values here. In fact, if I can query that, 56 dBz or decibels. That's a general, like the higher the dBz, the higher the return, which could indicate heavier rainfall. And if we get a severe storm, or if we get a good tall updraft in here, sometimes those higher reflectivity values can actually try and lead to some hail with some of these storms. But I bet you if we took another slice at this using the closest radar that we have, which is coming out of Tulsa for sure, let's tilt this around a little bit here, and actually let's make sure that we're down to close to ground level as well. And as we take our volumetric slice along the journey here, again, like some of these reflectivity values, at least the higher ones, not making it past 20,000 feet. So here, I don't think the updraft is quite strong enough for this to be a particularly strong or severe storm, but with the higher cloud tops in general, shown by these lighter reflectivity values here, trying to push over 30,000 feet, it is a bit of a strong storm, if not a good rainmaker for the northern parts of Osage County. With that said, I think it's easier to do this. Let's hit the home button here to reset our view. And if you're just joining us here, we're just keeping an eye on the storms that have been trying to get going in our western counties, but all the action has been from Emporia along the 335 corridor up to Topeka, over to Lawrence, and then sneaking back north and east toward Leavenworth and St. Joseph. Those are the only severe thunderstorm warnings we have in the state of Kansas for the time being. But then we've got actually this new severe thunderstorm warning now. I want to focus just on that, if the system will let me. That is clipping parts of Tulsa's, the National Weather Service office out of Tulsa, their area of responsibility when it comes to forecasting and warnings. So let's see what they have to say about this one. So far they're thinking for south central Osage, northwestern Creek, and southern Pawnee counties, that is mainly 60-mile-per-hour winds and quarter-size hail, but I'm pretty sure what Tulsa is doing is they're giving a heads up for these areas, because if this storm can somehow hold together, if it's not coming into an environment where the cap, where am I going here? Yeah, for lack of a better word, if it's working in an environment where the cap is still holding fairly strong, maybe that warning with 60-mile-per-hour winds and quarter-size hail will hold, because the storm like this with a mesocyclone, it can still keep going. It'll worsen into a capped environment, but with the cap, it's going to try and weaken it. That's only if we still have a good cap in place, so that layer of warm air aloft. Now, if Tulsa, through further analysis or through our further analysis, finds any weakening in the cap, so that's just to the west and northwest of Tulsa, then I wouldn't be surprised if maybe this gets upgraded to a tornado warning, or maybe the hail potential in the severe thunderstorm warning polygon here gets stronger, because if the cap weakens, the updrafts will have nowhere to go but farther up into the sky, and that stronger updraft is going to produce, and ending up producing rather, this larger size hail, like the storm we saw down in Oklahoma County. That strong updraft there in an unkept environment is producing at least golf ball size hail, the potential for it at the very least. But you're probably wondering how we look across the rest of the region in general, because we do have a low severe threat, but Doug and I have been constantly going back and forth throughout the course of the day, and so far our expectations have pretty much panned out. We are, actually, I'll just do what he does. We're going to take our telestration tool. I want to keep an eye, before the cold front starts to head our way, this area in general. almost right up to Pittsburgh, and in that general circle. So for a good portion of southeast Kansas and northeast Oklahoma to Miami, this is going to be the area where if any of these individual storms tried to develop, there'll be supercells, with wind and hail being the biggest issues. But for the next 2 hours or so, up until about 10 or 11 o'clock, that's going to be still the chance for our best tornado threat. When we say best here, this is not a big severe weather setup for us, but in this context, the best chance for a tornado is still on the low end of things. So we're not too concerned about a tornado threat, but within the next 2 hours, if any storms can really get rooted at the surface and if it can bust through that cap and get stronger, I would not be surprised if we had a random tornado warning or two, given how we already have a couple tornado warnings, not only over the Oklahoma City metro, but passing to the east now of Stillwater. So that's in the short term at the very least. So we are looking okay otherwise. Again, if I want to telestrate for you here, just this guy in Greenwood County and potentially this guy in northern Osage County in Oklahoma and southern Chautauqua County. Those are at least a couple cells that I'll still watch. It'll look impressive right now, but again, if it gets into any part of southeast Kansas where the sun's shining, if that sun is strong enough to erode some of the cap, they can still keep going and potentially strengthen a little bit, but definitely in the short term as well, I want to keep an eye and see on how these cells coming out of central Oklahoma hold together, see if they can grow upscale as we go along here. In fact, let's see how the rest of the evening could potentially unfold, and you can see how the future track's not doing a terrible job, really, about how things have panned out so far. You can definitely see the better thunderstorms from about Emporia working up through Topeka, Lawrence, KC, the western sides of KC up to Leavenworth and St. Joseph. A couple cells in our far western counties trying to sneak in. But still, the overall trend here is that we'll have to keep an eye on the potential for scattered potential supercell storms, with, again, wind and hail being the biggest issue, but up until we hit about 10 o'clock, that's going to be the best shot for our low tornado threat to do anything. Then, once we go into the overnight hours, certainly after midnight, 1 a.m., you see in our northwestern counties how we got that northwesterly wind kicking in. That is the cold front. That is going to really put an end to any severe weather chances around here. Still, ahead of the front, we could be dealing with some strong storms in areas south and east of I-44, and then hopping over the interstate close to Stockton Lake, certainly from Springfield, Willard up to Bolivar, maybe close to Humansville as well, as we continue north on Missouri 13. That's looking more like a heavy rainmaker as we go deeper into the night, because all the cloud cover in southwestern Missouri hasn't really had a chance to break apart. So the general thinking is, as any of these storms continue to work east and into southwestern Missouri, northwest Arkansas, it's not a really unstable environment. So we're not too concerned about a bigger severe threat working into our corner of southwestern Missouri, and that does include the Joplin area and down into northwestern Arkansas. But still, everybody is going to have to contend with these thunderstorm chances as we go throughout the course of the late tonight through the overnight hours, and this is certainly going to continue throughout the course of the day tomorrow. In fact, let me switch things up a bit here. Let me show you the feature track that I ran, in case you couldn't catch us during the 6 o'clock news on KOAM. In fact, I may have to hop off in a little bit here to see how if the latest guidance is showing any changes here. But the way I'm seeing things here, definitely a chance for some of those strong to severe storms with a low tornado threat up until about 10 o'clock, mainly for areas west of 69, out in Kansas and Oklahoma. Then throughout the rest of the overnight, as more storms work into southwestern Missouri, they're going to a more stable environment, maybe some strong storms by that time, but the bottom line is, once we go into the overnight, certainly as the cold front works on in, we're just going to continue with chances for scattered showers and even some thunderstorms. But look at how these temperatures turn chilly as we go throughout the course of the day tomorrow. I think still we have midnight highs around, let's say, the mid-60s, but as that cold front comes on in, I think the odds are we'll deal with temperatures, at least under the cloud cover, holding steady in the 50s. Now, if some of that cloud cover can break out, maybe some warmer temperatures to the northwest of Nevada, Pittsburgh, and let's say Altamont as well. But in general, once that front sweeps on through, all these rain chances will clear out. We turn cooler for Monday morning. In fact, so far I'm thinking most of us around 44 for Monday morning, but then Monday is looking good. We'll go partly to mostly sunny throughout the day, definitely lower 60s by then. Now, one thing that I haven't mentioned, but I should definitely, one that's actually definitely worth addressing as well, if we somehow do not get any severe thunderstorm warnings somehow, or tornado warnings, all the rain you saw coming across on the future track there, let me switch up a few things here. Have a look at the green counties that I just popped on the map for you here. And if I could find my query tool here, that's a flood watch for southwestern Missouri and then south of Grand Lake into northwestern Arkansas. That will take us until 7 a.m. for Monday because we could see quite a bit of rainfall coming out of these. So again, even if we somehow avoid any severe weather, all the rounds of rain, which could come down on a moderate to heavy clip throughout late tonight, certainly at times throughout the day and tomorrow, look at how these rain amounts could stack up. North and west of Joplin, about a quarter of an inch to an inch tops. But once you hop south of the interstate, the potential is there for some areas to see potentially 1.5, 2 inches, potentially up to 3 inches as the rain clears out. But again, once we really get into Monday morning, the rain chances will clear out. And I'll even show you the 7-day that I've had as well that I showed at 6 o'clock here. You can see how we'll look good for Tuesday. Mostly sunny, highs near 64, near 70 on Wednesday, and then sticking with Doug's pattern, I want to watch for some returning rain and thunderstorm chances Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. These don't look like all-day washouts since with any dry time we have, we'll go into the upper 60s on Thursday, maybe a quick dip or visit into the upper 70s for Friday, and then maybe turning a little bit cooler back near 70 by the time Saturday rolls around. All right, now let's get to the comments here. Let's see, I've got the safe room showing up here. You think Seneca will be okay tonight? Going back and forth with Doug, once you go into southwestern Missouri, which does include Seneca, the severe threat is pretty much minimal, just because you've held onto the cloud cover for so long, and your environment's certainly more stable compared to areas out into certainly south central Kansas and down in the central parts of Oklahoma. In terms of how fast these storms have been moving, CJ, they have not been seems like they haven't been the fastest of movers here. We can do our due diligence and see, well, first of all, like how strong, or how fast rather, these storms working across northeastern Oklahoma are moving. If it's any good indication, the tornado warning has been allowed to expire. If not, it's been canceled as of storms working away from Stillwater and Yale. So for now, the Weather Service in Tulsa doing the right thing, holding steady with potential 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts and quarter-size hail as this storm tries to work into a more slightly capped environment. But this storm's moving northeast at 40 miles per hour, so it's about respectable. That's I don't know, that's maybe about as fast as, that's like range line road speed for a better perspective here. Looking back over the past hour, let me see here. So that back echo from Eureka, and then working back down to almost south of Bloomington here. So here's what I'm going to do. We'll start a measured track here, and over the course of 1 hour, yeah, not terribly fast, generally between 30 and 40 miles per hour. But still, these are all storms that have been trying to get going. We're going to see how these continue to unfold, but if you by chance missed Doug's live stream that he did on his channel, the plan for tonight is, if there's not going to be a screaming tornado threat, or if we don't see that tornado threat really ramp up, you're only going to see me on air tonight. You're not going to deal with me and Doug, but Doug will certainly be keeping an eye on things from home throughout the course of the evening. And if we don't deal with any tornado warnings or see this tornado threat trying to hold on for much longer throughout parts of the area going into late tonight, again, it will be just me. So definitely keeping an eye on things on air here, and not seeing much else otherwise in terms of big developments. So I'm going to make the live stream come to an end here, but Of course, once I get a look at everything, and if we have time to hop on before we go on for our 9 o'clock on Fox 14, I'll sneak back on here with another good update here for everybody. In the meantime, we'll just keep an eye on the radar. We certainly are, and just stay safe out there. And for those that want rain, we're certainly going to get some